Last episode, I talked about burying beetles, which are members of the largest order of insects, Coleoptera. With 400,000 described species, it's the largest of all orders, making up almost 40% of described arthropods and 25% of all known animal species. Now, I have a friend who really likes the word Lepidoptera. He says it every chance he gets. And to be fair, it's a fun word to say. Lepidoptera. Go ahead, give it a spin. I'll wait. Lepidoptera is the order that includes butterflies and moths, and at 180,000 strong, it's the second largest order of insects and constitutes about 10% of all known animals. For today's episode, I want to tell you about just a few members of the order Lepidoptera, specifically swallowtail butterflies. And even then, just a few species of swallowtails, because there's over 550 species worldwide. The largest butterflies in the world are swallowtails, members of the genus Ornithoptera. Also fun to say, I highly recommend it when you get a chance. But that literally translates to birdwing. That's how big they are. Now, the majority of swallowtails are tropical, but members of this family inhabit every continent except Antarctica. Here in North America, there's 30 species, give or take, of swallowtail, and it's from that pool that I'll be picking today. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, and this is the Dispatches from the Forest podcast. Swallowtails are pretty distinctive butterflies. They're big and colorful, and in most species, the hind wings have a forked appearance that can be seen when the butterfly is resting with its wings spread. The shape of the hind wings vaguely resembles the forked shape of the tails of swallows, the birds, hence the name swallowtail. Now, like I said, there's about 30 species of swallowtail here in North America, and a lot of them are black and yellow and sport very similar patterns, yellow with tiger-like black stripes on their wings. So, several species have tiger in their common names, like the eastern tiger swallowtail, western tiger swallowtail, and Canada's tiger swallowtail. But I'm going to start with the two-tailed swallowtail, since that's the one I see most often here at Dispatches HQ. With a wingspan ranging from 3 to 6.5 inches, 7.5 to 16.5 centimeters, it's one of the largest swallowtails in North America, usually bigger than the other swallowtails in its range. Now, in addition to having yellow wings with black tiger striping, the hind wing of the two-tailed swallowtail has several blue spots as well. And like other striped swallowtails, it has small orange eye spots near the bottom center of each hind wing. These eye spots, which, as the name implies, look like eyes, are a form of defense. Ideally, they trick the predator into attacking the rear of the butterfly instead of the head, giving the butterfly a chance to escape. Now, two-tailed swallowtails look very similar to the western tiger and eastern tiger swallowtails, but they have narrower black stripes and usually two tails on each hind wing rather than only one. So, clearly, that's why they're called two-tailed swallowtails. Most two-tails also have a black slit pupil in the orange eye spot on each hind wing, a marking that's not found on the western tiger swallowtail. But, as is the case with most swallowtails, females are bigger and more brightly colored than males. They have more blue in a band around the orange spots on the upper side of the hind wing and a deeper yellow color that can shade to orange. Females also have wider black stripes on the forewings than males do. Now, nearly all swallowtail males engage in something called mud puddling, or just simply puddling, which is when an organism seeks out nutrients, in this case mainly salts and amino acids, in moist substances like rotting plant material, mud, wet sand, feces, urine, and carrion. So why do males engage in mud puddling and not females, you ask? Well, because males need these nutrients for reproduction, that's why. If you have a chance to look closely at the butterfly's body, the male also has an all-yellow segment at the very end of its abdomen, past the end of the black horizontal abdominal stripes. This segment is called the clasper, and it's used to hold on to the female during mating. It sounds like a pro wrestling move, doesn't it? Look out, Mean Gene, he's putting her in the clasper. Oh, yeah. Adults are active from mid-May to August, and it's really in that earlier part of the season that I see them here regularly, resting in the pine tree right outside my office window. Their bright yellow color is a sharp contrast to the green of the trees. Now, many butterflies have host plants, specific plants that they lay their eggs on and their caterpillars feed on before pupating into adults. Though not a swallowtail, monarchs and their host plant milkweed are, of course, the most well-known example of this. Two-tailed swallowtails are a bit less specific than monarchs. The host plants for two-tailed swallowtails include ash, poplar, willow, chokecherry, rosewood, sycamore, and hoptree. Now, as insects develop, they go through stages called instars. Swallowtail caterpillars at early stages of development are kind of a splotchy white and brown. They look like bird poop, which is exactly the point. It's a form of mimicry or camouflage. Birds, which would normally be one of their main predators, aren't dumb enough to eat their own poop. By the fifth instar stage, most swallowtail caterpillars don't look like bird poop anymore, but they still have some pretty fascinating defenses. At this stage, the caterpillars can be orange, green, or brown. Their back end is a little fatter than their front, and combined with a thin contrasting band and some eye spots towards the back, it's hard to tell which end is which. Just like with adults, this is intended to confuse predators. But it doesn't stop there. They have another trick up their sleeve. In the second segment, there's an opening, out of which the larva can protrude at will an erect, forked, glandular, fleshy organ, no, not that, called an osmeterium that emits a strong, penetrating, and pretty unpleasant odor. It's particularly good at deterring other insect predators like spiders, ants, flies, and parasitic wasps. The osmeterium looks kind of like a horn or some sort of stinger, or, when you combine it with those eye spots, the forked tongue of a snake, giving the caterpillar a bit of a menacing appearance. Okay, now let's turn our attention to another swallowtail, one that's not yellow and black, but instead black and white, the zebra swallowtail, since its mostly black and white color scheme makes it less tiger and more zebra. Zebra swallowtails are native to the eastern U.S. and a small piece of southeastern Canada. I saw these frequently when we lived in Virginia. The zebra swallowtail has a wingspan of between 2.5 and 4 inches, 6.5 to 10.5 centimeters. The shape of its forewings and hindwings give it a more triangular shape overall than the twin-tailed swallowtail, and the singular tails that extend from the hindwings are much longer. The inner margin of the hindwing has 2 blue spots in the corner and a red spot near the body. It also has a red stripe in the middle of the underside of the hindwings. Zebra swallowtails can be seen from late March to August in the northern part of their range and from February to December in the south. In the north, they have 2 broods and 3 or even 4 in the south, with the first brood being the most numerous. Now, because it has multiple broods, it actually has 2 seasonal forms, one in the spring and one in the summer. The spring forms are a little bit smaller, more white, and have shorter black tails with white tips. Summer forms are larger, have broader black stripes, and longer black tails with white edges. Now, males can often be seen patrolling near host plants, which I'll talk about in a second, in search of females. They tend to fly swiftly and directly, usually not more than about 6 feet or 1.8 meters above the ground. Females are more likely to lollygag, flying more slowly, especially when searching for suitable host plants. Both sexes readily visit a variety of flowers, and of course males also engage in puddling, which I talked about before. Now, the host plant for zebra swallowtails are the small trees and shrubs that make up the genus Asamina, collectively referred to as pawpaw, which incidentally bear the largest fruit native to the United States. So, I guess zebra swallowtails can be found, as the song goes, way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Now, zebra swallowtail caterpillars are cannibalistic. They'll eat their brothers and sisters, so females lay their eggs singly on pawpaw leaves or on the trunk. Young caterpillars are black with lighter colored transverse stripes. Older larvae come in two color forms. The more common form is green with yellow and white transverse stripes. The rarer form is black and banded with white and orange. In both forms, between the swollen thorax and the abdomen, there's a yellow, black, and bluish-white band. And of course, the caterpillars have that osmeterium I talked about before. The chrysalis is compact and either brown or green, with three small horn-like projections at the head and thorax. In the parts of its range where the winters are cold, early fall pupae go into diapause in the chrysalis, emerging in that spring form I talked about when the weather warms up. Now, one last thing before we leave the zebra swallowtail. Residents of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania started planting pawpaw, hoping to encourage zebra swallowtails to return to what was historically at least approaching the northernmost tip of its native range. Success was documented just last year in 2024. The zebra swallowtail had returned after an 87-year absence. And in 2025, just this year, a zebra swallowtail was identified in High Park, Toronto, Canada, even closer to the northern tip of its historic range, for the first time since 1896, an absence of 130 years. How cool is that? Okay, one last swallowtail I'm going to tell you about before we're finished, and that's the eastern giant swallowtail. With a wingspan of 5.5 to 7 inches, 14 to 18 centimeters for females, and 6 to 7.5 inches, 15 to 19 centimeters for males, this is the largest butterfly in North America. These large wings make them strong flyers, and they can glide long distances with very few wing beats. The wings are black with a horizontal yellow line across the forewings and a diagonal yellow line across the hind wings. It also has a small patch of red on the top center of the hind wings. The eastern giant swallowtail butterfly is common across the United States, reaching as far north as southern New England and southern Canada. South of the United States, it's found in parts of Mexico along with Jamaica and Cuba. Now, in recent years, the eastern giant swallowtail has expanded its northern range thanks to increasingly warm temperatures, global climate change, and in particular to a lack of September frosts in the more northern part of its range. They mostly inhabit deciduous forests and citrus orchards, and in fact, their preferred host species are citrus plants. Now, while large mature citrus trees are usually not significantly impacted by the caterpillars, they can cause significant damage to new foliage or younger trees, which they can more thoroughly defoliate. So, citrus farmers consider them pests. But outside of farms, they're valued for their beauty, and they can be raised from chrysalises to adults successfully at home. And on kind of a side note, part of what inspired this episode was talking to someone recently who raises swallowtails at home every year. And on that note, let's wrap this up. If you want to support the podcast, here's some ways to do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get some sweet Dispatches from the Forest merch. Find all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can donate through PayPal using my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com. Also, how you can contact me if you have questions, comments, or a request for a future episode. If you want to just send me a check, that sounds great. Just email me and I'll give you my mailing address. Or you can donate through the Cash App using the hashtag ForestNerd. Go check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatchesfromtheforest. Click on products, find something you like. Finally, follow Dispatches from the Forest on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. The Dispatches from the Forest podcast is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.